Hello and welcome to In Search of the Crystal Skull, an epic adventure into the world of mediocre. My name is Aaron.
My name is Patricia.
And I guess we're doing a bonus episode this time around. So, for those of you who do not know, Disney recently released on Disney Plus what happens to be probably its worst performing movie of 2022. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
And considering that Lightyear was very underperforming, that's a lot to say.
yeah, but anyway, let's dig ourselves into this and venture into the unknown. And I have to say, maybe what we're about to go into here is probably more about what this podcast is all about. Today, we are going to be talking about Strange World. It is a 2022 action-adventure comedy film that features a family called the Clades. They are allegedly family explorers whose differences threaten to topple their latest and most crucial mission into uncharted and treacherous territory. So, going into this, maybe we should probably, before we go any further into it, is that me and Patricia watched this on Disney+. Originally, this released, at least here in the UK, on the 23rd of November of 2022. Its director is Don Hall, and so we are basically given this world of what effectively is, I guess you could say, Indiana Jones meets Journey to the Center of the Earth. I guess we could say. It's
pretty
probably the
much.
best way we could describe it. And so we have a family called the Clades. The grandfather of the family has basically disappeared after 25 years, venturing to basically what is the other side of the mountains. The son, which is known as a searcher, has discovered a plant that basically gives this kind of power source to the city that currently they are in. So differences ensue because the grandfather character, who I completely forget the name of, which I think is really bad of me, Jaeger, wants to venture on to find the other side of the mountains, while the son, a searcher, wants to harness the plants to basically help mankind. They end up having an argument, they both split up, and 25 years later, searcher is the owner of a very successful farm, which gives out these little green power sources out to people, and so now the whole civilization has transformed because of this, and then the Jaeger has effectively disappeared basically for 25 years, searching for the other end of the mountains. So something happens where the power source ends up weakening, and so it is up to a band of people, including his young son Ethan. They go on to this adventure where they end up getting lost and then end up in basically what is the Strange World. And so there are some twists at the end, but I guess maybe because this movie is quite new, I don't think we'll give too much spoiler to this, but I think maybe we'll probably go into the good sides of this movie and probably go into the bad sides of this movie as well. But before we even get into that, let's talk about the box office performance, because I think that's probably unfortunately, the overshadowing thing of this whole movie. This thing did not do well at all. It only brought in about $62 million at the box office worldwide. This.
It's unbelievable considering that at this point in time, almost every single Disney movie that has come out after the revival era, ever since Princess and the Frog and Tangled, they have been gangbusters with their money and they've been critically acclaimed. So it's been it's been over a decade since we've had a box office bomb coming from a Walt Disney animated film. So this is a big deal. And it just so happens to be a sci-fi film, since this is the third time this has happened. Well, animated, of course. I'm talking about Atlantis: The Lost Empire, which it did make its money, but it was very underperformed. And then there was, of course, Treasure Planet, which was one of the biggest box office bombs of all time. And then, of course, when you talk about like other sci-fi films and other like pulpy action films, such as John Carter Goes to Mars and stuff like that. So yeah, Disney has had a long history of releasing these sci-fi pulpy films and not doing very well. Even Tomorrowland, which is based off of the classic Disney ride, did not do very well in the box office either. So it seems like these kind of films are box office poison when it comes to Disney.
Yeah, and so I think one one thing I think we should probably talk about basically is the presentation. I mean, like they really try to go with the adventure, like persona of this movie. Like it has like Indiana Jones like text, and like it has like these adventurous characters and everything like that. Like you've got the adventurous Jaeger who just wants to throw himself into adventure and exploring, and without not really taking any sense of the consequences. So there's that generic character, if you will. There's Searcher, who is like the sort of like not the opposite of Jaeger, but he is somewhat they are similar in some way, and he's quite hard-headed in himself, and so you've kind of got like they got generic character, and then you've got Ethan, who's like he's the rebellious teenager, and he's young in love, and he's also like really wanted to like take after his grandfather, but doesn't really like see the flaws in the character, and he just thinks that's his dad is probably holding him back, and obviously there's that whole thing that's going on between the two. But I've got to be honest with you, everybody, like these. If you're expecting to see something new out of this movie, down to the presentation, to the characters, or even to the music, you're not really going to find it here. Like, everything here feels really... I mean, I know there's, like, this thing where it says, like, there's, if it's you're ripping off something, it's stealing, but if you're ripping off, like, various other sources, it's research. Like, it's just kind of like, this feels like it's borrowed from, like, various other places, and unfortunately, it just isn't executed all that well, when you stick it all together.
Yeah, the story is pretty generic, the characters are pretty generic, the music is pretty generic, just everything about it feels like a textbook example of just regular action adventure pulpy sci-fi film. There's nothing really that makes it stand out. I mean, we already had something like this years ago with Onward from Pixar, in which we have this fantasy world that is relying on using this energy source as opposed to like doing magic, and everybody's just living a domestic life.
Well, at least Onward had a better narrative than Strange World, because I mean Strange World is just basically just like your generic fantasy adventure. At least with Onward, it's kind of like, oh hey, like here's this fantasy world, but everyone's now just kind of got a bit lazy and kind of like no longer acting on their instincts no more, and everyone's kind of like forgotten like the magic and adventure and things like that. So Onward is like somewhat like a reverse at the very beginning of that movie, and I think tells a better. I mean, it doesn't tell it very well, but it still tells. I would say that Onward tells a better narrative than Strange World, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, there are some things about Strange World that you can pinpoint, like, oh, I think I can think what they were trying to go with this. They're trying to be like Journey to the Center of the Earth, where they go all the way down, and it's this magical world filled with these crazy plants and creatures that you would not normally see. And oh, we have these explorer type characters like Indiana Jones, and oh, we have a little bit of elements from Avatar, where you have the glowing trees, and oh, you have this thing, you have that thing. So yeah, I mean, it borrows a lot, but there's nothing really about it that makes it, oh, this, we're gonna make this our own unique thing.
Yeah.
So
by the way, I'm not gonna give away too much spoiler into this, but let me safely say this: there's one part of the movie where I thought we were gonna make lava jokes at one point, like it's gonna like here's this living, here's the living island.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I thought, where's my ukulele? Sorry, where's my ukulele? And having a dream and a dream will come true. Good grief, I was waiting for that to come in, but let me just say,
you're just expecting them coming to terms about like, oh, here's something into the horizon, and then you just hear in the background, a long, long time ago, there was a volcano.
Yeah, only there's like a creepy eyeball staring at you. It's kind of like, it's like it's just
and here's the thing, Moana did this better.
Yeah, I think Moana did this better. I think.
Anyway, so for those who haven't seen this movie, which by the way, I decided to take a poll and ask you guys on both Twitter and on the YouTube community, and both of them are the same, believe it or not. And I know that I have different followers from these different social media outlets, and some of them are similar, but nonetheless, here's the thing, Aaron. Only 15% of our viewers and our listeners have seen Strange World in theaters.
Yeah, and hence why we're doing this as a bonus and not doing it as like a casual chat or as a proper episode.
Yeah,
Effectively.
exactly. Now, if the ratings would have been a lot higher, we probably would have seen this movie in theaters. But because pretty much nobody from our listening crowd has watched this movie in theaters, we decided to save it as a bonus episode, wait for it to come out on Disney Plus, and then talk about it.
You know what? By the way, we do another search. We do another podcast called Pixmix. By the way, that's the reason why we're talking about Lightyear on the show. So if you've not seen the Lightyear episode, by go and so see that. But there was actually, I'm sure we released a video on Twitter where we actually went to go see Lightyear, and the only people in a theater for 300 people, there was probably 8 of us. Pretty much there,
Exactly.
watching Lightyear.
And there were full-grown adults. No children went to go see this movie.
Oh, all the children went to go see Jurassic World Dominion. That's where they all went. Exactly, yeah. I told you about that.
Yes, you did. Yeah. You did tell me about that. Well, I went to the restroom. You were waiting for me.
Yeah, so Jurassic World Dominion stopped, and all these flood of kids came over, and I was looking at them all thinking, these are the kids that should have gone to go see Lightyear. What are they going to go see Jurassic World? It's so weird. But anyway, putting that aside, if that's how bad Lightyear was doing, at the prime of when it first came out, imagine how badly, imagine how sparsely populated, all the Strange World movie theaters were.
Oh man, yeah, exactly. I mean, now this came out around the Thanksgiving period, so you would think, okay, everybody is staying at home and everybody is going to be spending time with their family. Maybe for those who don't celebrate Thanksgiving, they'll go to a movie and they'll go see this. But apparently that wasn't the case. And yeah, the performance of this was even worse than Lightyear. Strange World didn't even make remotely the amount of money back from its theatrical run.
Yeah, there's no excuse here. You would have think, even if it was gonna, it wasn't expected to bomb this badly. I mean, I actually can't see how much it actually took to make this movie. I think they're even too embarrassed to admit how much it took to make it. I think.
Yeah, I mean, according to what it says online, and I'm just reading
hang on a second,
the deadline.
Yeah. It's between 135 to 180 million to make this. And
also, that's what I was going to say. So Deadline Hollywood
Yeah.
said 135. Variety said 180 million. And then according to the website Financial Information, The Numbers, we found out about that it only just made $61 million.
Yeah, but according to projections, apparently this is going to be a $147 million loss for Disney.
Yeah, that is not good, especially since this year alone, Disney went through some rough patches, especially with the firing of Bob Chapek, and now Bob Iger has to come back as the CEO.
To be honest with you,
they were going through a lot of mixture.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, though, that's a different story on itself. I don't think there's anything to do with Strange World.
But, no, I know it has nothing to do with Strange World. I'm just talking about the company itself. This is supposed to be their 61th film, and we even saw in the beginning of the movie, this is not a spoiler, by the way, it's already been showcased on many social media outlets, but that they have a new intro for their all their movies, and it's the Disney 100 Years of Wonder. So this is the first movie that they actually decided to put this in, and you would think that this is going to be a big deal. It's wow, 100 years of Disney, and it got stuck for the very first time in a movie that's just simply okay.
Yeah, you know what? It kind of makes me wonder if they should have gone with Frozen 3.
Frozen 3. We would have to be that desperate.
Yeah, it makes me, well, you and I have just watched this. I wouldn't be, after watching this, I'd be kind of I want to see Elsa, throw ice around again. It didn't work, this movie. I mean, here's the thing about this, it's kind of weird because I feel a bit half and half about it. I feel like there's some things about this movie that it did really well. I feel like the worlds are imaginative. I will say that. I mean,
Sure.
It is unique. I mean, this is a movie that this is a type of, setup of a movie that we've not seen from Disney. So that's unique as well. It's got an LGBTQ, supporting actor in this. So,
yeah, exactly. And all the news outlets has been saying, okay, here's our 1 millionth first gay character in a Disney movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the fact that we've had other gay characters in in Disney movies in the past and
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
And but here's the thing that I will give it praise is that he's a main character. He's not just a side character, or he's not like just a character who only shows up for like one scene and they can just easily cut it out for countries that don't approve of the LGBTQ representation, like what happened with Onward.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's not a stereotype either. Like, oh, good grief, the gay stereotype characters that we had in the 90s, they would make you cringe today. Really would.
So you younger kids out there who are seeing this representation in other media, thank your lucky stars.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to things like that. Here's the thing about this. I know exactly what people are going to say. Oh, it's go woke, go broke. This is the reason why the movie failed, because it had a gay character in it. No.
Oh my God.
The reason this movie failed is because it took some old concepts and it's prepackaged them all together, and it took very generic and very it's taken not very imaginative ways in an imaginative movie. It tried to execute it all and throw it all together, and it just hasn't worked. The LGBTQ representation has nothing to do with the reason why this movie is not as good as it should be.
Exactly. And I know that there are some people who made the argument that, the movie wasn't advertised very well. I didn't see any commercials for it. Well, if you were on social media, it has been promoted multiple times on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook and, various other sources. The Disney Channel YouTube channel was able to showcase some interviews with the actors of Strange World. So there was stuff out there.
I mean, I guess that. I mean, was there any McDonald's or like Burger King toys or anything like that for Strange World? That's
an interesting question. Yeah. I don't recall seeing any of that stuff. In fact,
because Disney does that stuff, don't they?
Yeah, I'm going Christmas shopping right now, and I still see stuff for Encanto. I haven't seen any toys for Strange World.
Wow.
Nothing of the dog, nothing of the little Splat character, nothing.
You would imagine even even Early Man had stuff for in Subway. Remember when they used to do the kid meals back in that time? Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I hands down one of the most generic Aardman animation movies ever made.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see some people's points of view because other Disney movies have been pushed to the moon, and I guess a lot of I guess maybe what Disney's advertising approach to this movie was, let's just stick an ad here and ad there on websites and on YouTube videos and things like that, and let's just hope that people will see them and go through it. And I can probably imagine there's going to be people watching other movies and there'll be trailers playing and stuff like that. But I mean, what other movies would if they did do so some of that as well. They would be people were waiting for the trailers. I mean, I highly doubt only a few people have probably been watching those as well. Other ones people going to get soda and popcorn and that, and then finally coming in at the very last minute when the movie finally starts. I don't know, but right. I mean, maybe this is probably a lesson for Disney, is that what they did with Strange World in regards to promoting it did not work, and then the next time they have to promote another movie, maybe they need to do it differently. I don't know.
Yeah, so. They have to do a lot of more different strategies so that they can be able to promote their stuff. I mean, just a few posts on Instagram and Twitter there is not going to cut it. And sure, people are going to be on their phones or on the internet looking through their tablets and their laptops and stuff like that. But unless you're geeks like us who follow Disney on social media, if you're just a regular Joe Schmo who's maybe not necessarily knowing about what the newest Disney movie is going to be about, they're not going to know anything about Strange World. Yeah. In fact, literally, the question that I asked on social media regarding about if you're going to see this movie in theaters, I gotten a few responses saying, I didn't even know this movie was going to be out in theaters. I knew nothing about it. So again, Disney, what are you doing to your common demographic? I mean, sure, you're going to cater to the dorks like us who are going to see this stuff on social media, but where's the rest of the people?
And this is their 100th movie.
Yeah.
It's just wow. That's just bad. It really is.
That's really bad. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? Enough, we spent a couple of minutes not talking about the movie. Where we've been talking about the problems around the movie.
I'm sorry. What is there to say about this movie?
It's Indiana Jones meets Journey to the Center of the Earth, effectively.
There you go. The end. Okay, everybody. Let's just do our ratings of the.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair though, I think maybe we should probably also on top of that as well. The music's
about the story and the characters, but we won't go into major spoilers.
Well, I mean, we're not going to go. I mean, we're already like given like an idea of like what the movie is. So basically, what it is that they have like this plant that they exalt power from. I think it was called Panto. I think it's called Planto.
Yeah, Pando. Yeah,
Pando. Yeah, okay, Pando. And so it's now dying. And so the idea is that our heroes go out and into this strange world, and they're trying to find out the source of like what's killing it. And things like it. So, and obviously there's like the twist at the end, which we're always used to in in Disney's movies now. Even in Canto, like had like this twist ending, pretty much, and so I think that's another thing as well. Like we expect the twist ending all now with these Disney movies. And that. So like,
what is this whole like, oh, our resource of the way that we live is dying? Why does this remind me of Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea?
Yeah, exactly. And there was times where it kind of reminded me of Atlantis. Like the way that they like they sank to the bottom and like then they discover the city. I thought they were going to discover the city of Atlantis at the end.
And in the movie they were talking about how their resource was dying too. So wow, I mean, we're how many things are we going to compare it to? It's kind of like our friends at Toongrin when they saw Spark a Space Tale, and they just constantly compared it to a whole bunch of other things as opposed to like talking about it as its own thing.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Here's the thing about this as well. Like, I mean, we don't. Once again, this is another Disney movie without like an antagonist, and I don't know about you, but I really want to see a bad guy right now. Like,
well, I mean, but Aaron, we did get a bad guy. It's called generational trauma.
Yeah, exactly. But, I just feel like, if you're going to do a movie in this style and, you're going to, like, incorporate, like, the adventure tropes, you always have, like, the over-the-top bad guy, don't you? Like
yeah,
it's just
you already had it with Atlantis and with Treasure Planet. You had Commander Rourke for Atlantis, and you had Long John Silver for Treasure Planet. But here it's generational trauma between the 3 generations of Clade men.
Yeah, and also on top of that as well, like this also shoehorns in like an environmental message too. So like
which by the way, in terms of like our environmental messages. It doesn't do a very good job.
No, really, no.
No, oh my gosh. It's just like, it's so underdeveloped in terms of their environmental message. It's like literally at the last bit of the movie.
Yeah. On top of that as well, like, I mean, like, do you get the feeling that a lot of this stuff was also kind of like forced and rushed as well? So at one point, I'm not going to say who, but, there are some characters who do end up getting like on the other side of the mountain. It's kind of like, really? Like, like it just happens.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so, and then also you get like the disagreements like in like the very end of like the second towards like the final third, and they all go away from each other, and then they kind of like learn lessons, and then they all come back together for like the big finale.
Literally until like the last act, we were even saying that the main protagonists in this films were some of the most unlikable that we've seen in Disney in a while.
It's just they feel poorly written. It's just they
are. I'm sorry, they are terrible to each other. You have this whole thing about like, oh, my way is the best way, and I'm doing what's best for you. You have to follow in my footsteps. You need to leave a legacy behind because I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm just doing something that I feel is my destiny to do. It's like, come on,
yeah, it's
really,
like, hey,
we're gonna go through this.
The really bad dad from Chicken Little? Well, here's 2 of them with an ego.
Beautiful. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. Yeah, there's just so much I mean, unfortunately, here's the thing about this. Like, I like the idea of this movie. I really do. Like, I like the idea of them, like, they found this, like, power source, and now all of a sudden it's jeopardizing their way on Earth, and, and all of a sudden they have to, like, be forced into, like, into this adventure, and then, Jaeger and Ethan and Searcher have to all, like, get along in this whole thing, and, and they're all coming from, like, different perspectives and everything like that. So there's all of that as well. Like, there are some good ideas in all of this, and I've got to be honest with you though, like, the minute I saw, like, the big ship that they travel on, by the way, I mean, I'm sorry this is, like, somewhat of a spoiler, but the big ship that they fly on, it kind of reminds me of the Starbug from Red Dwarf. And Patricia's not seen Red
Yeah.
Dwarf, so she won't know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like I kind of I see what you're trying to compare it to, because I mean, the disagreements between the father and the grandfather and the kid who's in the middle, it reminded me of El Tigre, in which Manny is trying to figure out, what is he going to be? Is he going to be a hero like his father, or is he going to be a villain like his grandfather? And he doesn't know which one to choose, so he tries a little bit of both to see which one he ended up being. So it kind of gave me those vibes too.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you got two characters who like dragging them from like one side to the other, and it just becomes really awful. In that regard.
Exactly, and these are our protagonists.
Yeah,
these are the people that we're going to be following throughout the course of the movie, and they're just yelling at each other the whole time, and I'm just like, ugh, really? These are the people that we're going to be following. These are the people whose, the stakes of millions of people in this particular town is on the line for this power source. And we have this one guy who's dedicated to being an explorer and, gives jack off about his family. He just wants to, find out what the other side of the mountain contains. And then we have the character Searcher, who wants nothing more than to be a simple farmer and to, do his own legacy by giving this power source over to the people of Avelonia, and he's trying to teach his son the same way because he feels that that's the right thing to do. And then we have Ethan, who doesn't know what he wants to do. So yeah, it's just like they're being very forceful about what they want for their family, even though that they don't want it, and they're acting like hypocritical to each other because they feel that they're doing what's best for their family, even though that's not exactly what they want. And they try to talk into reason on why that's not what they want, but they won't listen to it because, well, they're the adult figures who's older and more experienced, so clearly they have the rights to say whatever they want, and your opinion, well, who cares?
And also, Ethan's just a typical teenager, unfortunately. Like, he doesn't... Besides being LGBTQ, there's no really other redeeming kind of, like, factor to him. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really, like, special about him. He doesn't have anything that makes him stand out. He doesn't go through, like, the hero's journey in which he wants to become an explorer. But, maybe he stumbles in the beginning and then he becomes heroic at the end. He doesn't go through, like, the farmer's journey in which, like, maybe he's not a good farmer and maybe he feels like he doesn't want to be. Or maybe he is a good farmer. This was what he was doing all his life. And then when he finds out that there's a bigger world out there, he wants to be able to take it all in, and he wants to be able to learn more about it, which they kind of hint that was what the intention of him was, but it's not executed very well.
Yeah. You know what they should have done? They should have had the boyfriend go with Ethan. Like,
that would have been an interesting idea.
Exactly, yeah. Like, if to take some focus off like the whole, grandfather, dad, son, tribe, and then just give it a little bit. I feel like this whole thing was overexposed, and like, when you give it a bit of a break, you move it away from that, and maybe have that focus like on the relationship going, and even
but unfortunately, the thing that we're giving Ethan is just like this little gooey character who has no face, who's not able to speak. He's supposed to be like, oh, look at me, I'm like the cute little character, like that blobby character from Treasure Planet.
Hey, kid, buy the toys.
Yeah, exactly. Buy the toys, kids. So yeah,
I can't believe Disney has made something worse than a minion. I'm sorry. Like,
yeah, I mean, at least minions, as much as they're annoying, they actually have personality. And you can be able to differentiate between all the other minions, and they do stuff that's kind of cool. I mean, this little gooey blob creature, I mean, sure, it does some pretty interesting things and it's very essential to the plot, but still, it's like there's no personality to him. It's like he barely has a face, so we're not able to see the expressions on him. He doesn't speak, so we don't understand what he's saying. So it's just like basically a blank slate, just doing nothing but helping whatever happens in the plot.
Yeah, like he's basically like he's doing like the Scooby-Doo thing where like even Scooby-Doo even talked like so like he's trying to like action out like how he feels and how he's emoting like it's like he wouldn't be able to place him if like Wall-E went to like an alien planet or something like that like but I mean it's yeah. it's just it just doesn't work. And
Yeah, and now here's an example of something that's like this that happened very, very well, and it was a movie that came out this year with Lightyear. Socks, for example. Socks was an emotional character for Buzz who was going through a lot of stress, having to go through a failed mission of trying to get back home and trying to get off of the planet. And Socks was there to be very helpful, but at the same time, he spoke. He had a personality and he had a face that we can be able to connect to. Sure, he was made out of like robotic parts, but at the same time, he was a very lovable character. This right here, it's just like nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing to hold on to with this character. Unfortunately, he's just he's just there for either for comedic relief, or he's just there to kind of like sort of like with a stick, kind of like move the story along, kind of like poking at it. If anything, he's like, I mean, I understand what they tried to do, like at the very end, where like he's trying to like he's part of the twist in the way, but I mean, even then, like he's not really like that all that much integral to it. I mean, they could have easily like seen the twist even without him.
Exactly, yeah. In fact, you could have removed this character and added the boyfriend.
Exactly, yeah. So they I mean like yeah, again, like this movie actually interesting enough, even though like they probably angered all the right wingers with like the LGBTQ representation, but besides that, like this movie doesn't really take any risks when you really think about it. Like, it does, like, the whole emotional trauma and stuff like that, but besides that, like, can we really say, like, oh, hey, this scene would have upset a couple of people, or that scene would have, like, done something that, some people would have got talking about. Like, that's the thing, like, there's no scene that we can see in this movie that would have got people talking, when you really think about it. Besides the big eyeball.
Both good and bad. I mean, other than just that, as you mentioned before, the eyeball and, oh, we have an LGBTQ character. Other than that, it's like there's no water cooler moments in which, like, you sit around and you talk with your friends about, like, oh, you remember that scene and you remember this scene. I mean, all the other movies that we've had in Disney over the past few years had those water cooler moments. It's like, oh, in Princess and the Frog, you remember the scene in which, when Tiana turns into the frog, or when they meet up with Mama Odie, or when Dr. Facilier first came along. Or with Frozen, do you remember when Elsa is finally able to, use her powers to her full advantage? Remember Let It Go? Remember Do You Want to Build a Snowman? Wreck-It Ralph. Oh, that cool video game character. And, oh, we're able to explore all these different worlds and locations. And even with, like, Zootopia, it's like, oh, wow, do you remember the scene in which when Judy and Nick were able to try to solve the mystery about why the animals are acting, like, wild and rampant? I mean, even with Encanto, even recently as Encanto, we've had a lot of moments like this when we found out about the true twist about Abuela, and we don't talk about Bruno and all that kind of stuff. But here, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's just nothing.
It needed, like, if they were going to go all out on this trope, I mean, they should have put in, like, far more danger, and they should have put in far more risks, in my opinion. And also, they needed the over-the-top villain. I'm sorry, like, and also that over-the-top villain probably would have been the talk of the movie. Probably, like, here's the thing, like, we, as of this recording this podcast, we're only, like, a couple of months away now from the Super Mario movie, I think, aren't we? Yeah, so, like,
yes, we are.
And we're looking forward to Jack Black's performance as Bowser, pretty much. Yes. And it's like, yeah, exactly, yeah, like, we're looking forward to seeing villains again, effectively. And, another thing about this movie as well is that, don't you feel like there's a bit of illumination in this movie as well? Like, it's kind of like play it safe, kind of like, it's not wanting to say, it's not going to really, like, upset that too many people, with that. Do you get that illumination feel when watching this movie as well?
I get what you're trying to say. It's like, it has, like, this gorgeous animation and these really nice set pieces, but the story is pretty safe. The characters are pretty safe. There's just nothing that makes it stand out. But you know what? I mean, at least Illumination has had some highlights. Like, there's, like, one or two characters that are, like, really memorable, like the Minions, or, oh, you remember that song from Pharrell? Like those kind of things. I mean, at least Illumination has some moments in which people do remember them. So, I mean, I wouldn't say in terms of, that, it's all part of the similarities with Illumination, but, maybe like one or two things, such as like the generic story and the generic characters. And, it feels like what you talked about with Good Dinosaurs. Like, it's like a tech demo, it's like beautiful animation, but the story and characters are so generic because they're trying to put the focus on the world instead of the characters.
Well, have you noticed I've not said that word yet, tech demo? Because I feel like all this animation we've seen before. Like, like,
Oh,
it's
okay.
like, look, I mean, look at Encanto and look at some of the other, modern Disney movies. They have, they have the same somewhat level of, like, detail and animation. Like, do you remember when I
Hmm.
paused Encanto and we were like, saw the, Abuela, and like we just saw like, all the detail, like, her skin texture, like, her hair, and like, her clothing. Her clothing looked like it was actually real at one
Yes,
point.
I
Like,
remember.
it's really it was, the uncanny value was just kind of like just slipping away as we the further we looked at it. Like it was just
Hmm.
it was great animation in Encanto, and
Yeah,
unfortunately, Encanto also has a better story too. But I mean,
yeah, and better music.
and better music, exactly, yeah. But Strange World, oh my goodness, for this to be Disney's 100th, good grief! Like
Well, I mean, this is the 100 years of Disney. This is their 61st animated
well,
film.
yeah, like exactly, yeah. But still, they've done 60 other movies before this one. And
Hmm.
this is what they got to show for it. Like it's just
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
the
now let me ask you a question about this, Aaron. Now, as mentioned earlier, we've been talking about the revival era. Now, for those who don't know, Disney likes to, divide all of the films and divide it into 7 different eras. So you have the golden era, which has like, all the films from the 30s and 40s. You have the 90s films, which is the Renaissance era. And the one that we're currently on is the revival era, starting off with Princess and the Frog. Do you think that this is the end of the revival era and we're in a new era, or do you think this will be like the black sheep, the one that, out of a sea of amazing movies that we've had, this is the one that's going to be like the one that sticks out like a sore thumb? You have your Black Cauldrons or your Chicken Littles or something like that. Do you think that this might be it, or do you think that we're going to be entering into a new era?
Here's the thing, like, I believe, like, well, what's the next bit? What's the next? I mean, the next untitled. I mean, right now the next Disney animated movie is an untitled animation film.
Well,
So,
from what I understand, it's going to be called Wish. And we talked about this in Aaron and Patricia about like the princess who, sees the wish on the star. And, that's the origins
oh
of where the
yeah,
star came
I
from.
remember that now. Yeah, so like, well, we don't. I mean, that it's called. I mean, it's right now people are referring to it as Wish, but we don't actually know if
Yeah,
that's
they're
actually.
referring to it as Wish, but we don't know if it's going to be like a different title. But that's going to be the next Disney movie, and that's coming out next year.
Yeah, and just I don't know. Like, I mean, I'll tell you what, Elemental looks very promising. I have to say.
Yeah, but that's Pixar, though.
Exactly, yeah, but I mean, are we now seeing like, every time Disney seems to get better, Pixar seems to get worse. And every time Pixar seems to get better, Disney seems to get worse. Have you noticed that kind of
Oh,
like,
okay. So we have Pixar with both Turning Red and Lightyear, and we have Disney with Strange World. So does that make them even?
well, I mean, I mean, also when Pixar like releases 2 movies in the same year, we know that one is bad and one is good. So like,
Yes.
or one is mediocre and one is good. What
Yeah.
that's what we end up with Pixar when they release. That's what Pixar should stop doing. They stop releasing 2 movies a year. Like just
Yeah.
release one and then just concentrate on that, and then
Yeah,
get on
exactly.
to the next
You
one
you've
next year.
you've done this. You've done this 4 times, Pixar. It doesn't work.
Exactly, like don't worry, guys. I'm pretty sure, like the lifespan of a human being on this earth, at least they'll see 50 Pixar movies. You know, so like there's entertainment to go around. Don't worry about like having to like, put out so many movies as possible. So like
Yeah.
just keep releasing movies, then release a couple of shorts. Like keep doing the short series. The short series are good. The short series are actually enjoyable. When we do talk about these things. But yeah, anyway, we're not talking about Pixar. We're talking about Disney. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, I mean like what's coming up next? I mean, in regards to Disney, I mean like unfortunately we've got like another bunch of remakes. So we got Little Mermaid, Peter Pan and Wendy. We've got another Haunted Mansion movie. Why are we doing another Haunted Mansion for God's sakes?
Because the first one sucked.
Oh, you should know. And then we got Indiana Jones 5, funnily enough, like, where, it's the sequel to what this podcast was based on, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then we got some more Marvel movies, and yeah, I mean, like, I mean, Strange World is strange in the sense that it looks really fantastic, but it comes across so, mediocre at the same time. Like it's such a strange it is a strange world. Looking at this movie, I mean, hey guys, you've achieved it. It's strange, like it's a fantastical movie that's just like really really lukewarm. So it's
Yeah.
just they've done it.
Yeah,
We don't
I
need to
would
do this
say in
podcast
my
anymore. This
personal
is the movie. We found it.
yeah, in my personal opinion, out of all the Disney revival movies that I've ever seen, and I've seen them all, I would say that this is probably one of, if not the weakest. I mean, I'm still debating whether Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet or this movie is the worst.
I enjoyed Ralph Breaks the Internet more than I did this. I'll be
Yeah,
honest
I
with
mean,
you.
I did too, but I just felt like it wasn't as good as the original.
This to me feels like, I mean, well, mind you, I think the reason why Ralph Breaks the Internet gets the pass is because I think the Emoji Movie came out around about the same time, didn't it?
Oh, you're
So
right.
yeah, so that's the
Yes.
reason why I think Ralph Breaks the Internet gets the pass, because good grief, when the Emoji Movie came out, good grief, all the hate that movie got. And
Yeah.
yeah, like
I guess you're right. So I mean I would say that Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet is probably the weakest in sequels because I mean we did enjoy Frozen 2, so there's that. Now I think that as an original movie, like the first of its kind, I think that out of all of them that came out during the revival era, I think this is the worst one.
it is the worst one. I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right. So
which is so sad because, like, there is actually some good ideas here. Like, I like the idea of an adventure movie. I like the idea of, like, over-the-top characters. I like the idea of a fantasy world. I like the idea of, I don't even do like the idea of an environmental message. Like, back in the 90s and the 80s, you know this, Patricia. You and I grew up with basically environmental messages
yeah, of course we did. We had Once Upon a Forest. We had Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest. I mean, we had Captain Planet and the Planeteers. This stuff was pretty much common to us.
Even then, so, you remember the Sonic Satam? Like Sonic the Hedgehog?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
That had an environmental message. Like, like all these
did.
robots, like, destroying the environments, and, like, Sonic and, his woodland friends, like, going to save the day. It's just, some of the movies that in the TV shows that we grew up with that didn't have, like, it shoved in your face. At least, some elements of it was there. Pretty much.
Exactly. Like, yeah, sure, it was very preachy. Sure, it was not very subtle, but at least you knew what the message was.
Well, I mean, the Sonic Saturn one was subtle when you really think about it.
No, I'm talking. Yeah, I'm sure that's true, but I'm just saying that it was more the exception than the norm.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, so we're used to this, like, adventure cheese and things like that, and I really wish that's the way they were going. There's another movie that now comes to mind, which they did this kind of like, they went, like, all the way for, like, in a particular genre, and they didn't really go all that fully explore it all. I can't remember what that movie was. It's bothering me now. I'm sure we've been down this road before, where they take something and they go all I want them to go all out with it, but they just didn't. Lightyear. Exactly.
That's right. Yeah, we did talk about this in Lightyear. Remember that
Lightyear was supposed to be Andy's favorite sci-fi movie from the 90s, and and we walked away thinking about, this is no way Andy's favorite movie from the 90s. Like, it doesn't have like that 90s sci-fi cheese in it that we're used to in it. It doesn't have
it was played way too serious.
It was played too weak. Like, the characters in here just didn't feel like all that over the top. They didn't feel like, the way they should be. But Lightyear didn't even come across as all that heroic. He just came across as, just as like, too hard-headed, if anything.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't really play up to, like, him being like, a fun-loving character or anything like that. He was just like, he was so focused on that. Like, yeah, exactly. He was too serious in that regard. And that's what Strange World should have basically been. It feels like the people who wrote Lightyear feels like they wrote Strange World. In a way.
They didn't.
Exactly, yeah, but it feels like it.
I know it does feel like it. I mean, these are the same people who did Ryan the Last Dragon. And that movie was a lot better because it focused on a very serious moral about trust. And it also focused on about how Raya was trying to do a wrong that had happened, especially with all the different nations that were like going up against each other so that they can be able to be the one for this, one source. And that was a very interesting story because we were able to explore the different worlds and it was able to have that really nice message about trust. So yeah, they're able to do that kind of stuff. They have a big world, they have these really interesting characters, and they have this really important and powerful moral. What happened here?
Yeah, I don't know. They should, if they were gonna do this type of movie, they should have just gone all out with it and just, said, okay, this might come across as a bit like, what's the word? It might come across as cliche, but at least it's gonna be a fun cliche. Here's the adventurers, they're all like zany characters, and they're just gonna throw caution to the wind and just go right into it, and you've got the two characters who are a bit hard-headed and clash on and disagree with certain things. You've got the young energetic teenager who he's all whimsical and where he's just finding all this amazing, just along for the ride. You've got the wimpy guy who it should have been kind of Fear from Inside Out. I mean, they should have had that character in this, but they didn't. And then there's another thing as well. A lot of the crew members are very generic.
And they're pretty much useless.
Yeah, exactly. They're not given any screen time. This is the thing. Our screen time is so dedicated to Ethan and Jaeger and Searcher that they're so in that regard. They're all focused around them. Everyone else doesn't get a say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, remember that Meridian, who is Searcher's wife and Ethan's mother, she's along for the journey too, and she doesn't really do much of anything other than just, drive the airship.
Exactly. It's just, yeah. So, I mean, her development is that she likes to fly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she has three things that she loves. She loves her family, she loves, fixing things, and she loves to fly. So it's let's explore more on this character. How did she and Searcher first meet? And, what are her thoughts about meeting her father-in-law that she heard so much stories about? And, yeah, I mean, and also, Avelonia, for example. This is supposed to be the town that we're supposed to rescue because the power source is dying. We don't really know much about the town either, about its inhabitants. How are the people reacting towards the fact that their way of life is going to be going away soon? We don't get any of that.
It makes me wonder if this should have been a TV series.
That's the same thing you said about Turning Red.
Yeah, well, I mean, I say Turning Red. I mean, I think Turning Red should have been a movie in some way, but I feel like they should have been it should have a TV series, Turning Red, on the side of that. I think.
Yeah, sure. That's just my opinion. I feel like maybe if this was going to be a TV series and this was going to be the pilot, then I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah. Anyway, we've talked this movie to death pretty much, and so I think maybe we should probably give us our scores.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, this movie really is trying, but it just doesn't execute it all that well. I do somewhat like some of the characters in this, but they're written very badly, unfortunately, and so there's that. And then, the world that it's around looks very wonderful and fantasy and everything like that, but unfortunately, it does feel we were kind of making fun of some of the characters, some of the creatures in all of this, there were characters I saw before. Definitely, the thing at the end. Let's just say that I was saying to that thing, thank you for telling Aang how to beat Fire Lord Zuko.
The thing at the end, yes.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so there was that. And so, I mean, there was, there's a lot of promise here, but it's not done very well. I would have, if this was a script reading, I would have said, go back, write this again, and change this, change that, and add a villain, and, hey, you're running, you got a Disney movie here. A lot, there was some things that, it needed a couple of, run-throughs before this ended up going to production, in my opinion. That's just me.
Okay.
And so, unfortunately, I'm going to probably, maybe this is a very generous score, maybe I'm going to give it here, I'm going to say it's a 6.
I'm sorry, Aaron. I'm going to have to be harsh on this because this is Disney. We're expecting a lot at this point. And, some people might argue about the pandemic held them back, which, okay, that's perfectly fine. But, there were a lot of animated movies that came out during the pandemic and they turned out fantastic. So at this point in time, it's not an excuse. 5.
5. Okay, so 5.5 out of 10.
Yeah, so that sounds just about right.
Yeah, okay. All right, everybody. Well, funny enough, for a bonus episode, which we weren't thinking we were going to go very long on, we actually went pretty long on. So,
yeah, well, that's because there was just so much to say about how little to say there was about it.
Yeah. Well, everybody, until another adventure in search of the Crystal Skull, my name is Aaron.
My name is Patricia.
Take care, and bye-bye for now.
See you later.